What are exclusive disjunctions, and are they really in English? Let's consider. Hello, I'm Chico. Welcome to the Philosopher Channel Introduction to Propositional Logic course. It's sometimes said that there are two disjunctions in English, an inclusive disjunction and an exclusive disjunction. Now, the inclusive disjunction is the one that we're familiar with. A or B is true if and only if at least one disjunct is true. So it's true if A is true, it's true if B is true, it's true if both of A and B are true. It's only false when both A and B are false. So if you take a look at our truth table down there, you can see that the typical A or B truth table. And it's only false in row 4. But it's also sometimes claimed that there's an exclusive disjunction in English. And that says that A or B is true if and only if at exactly one disjunct is true. So it's true if A is true, but B is false. It's true if B is true, but A is false. But it's false if A and B are both true. Of course, it's false if A and B are both false as well. But it's definitely false if both of them are true. And you could take a look at the truth table for this exclusive disjunction. And so you can see that we can definitely symbolize this in propositional logic. I have a symbol there that's the wedge with a little bar underneath the wedge. There are also some other symbols that people use in different textbooks. But looking at the truth tables, they only differ on row 1, where A and B are both true. In this section, we'll start by looking at the behavior of exclusive disjunctions. Then we'll look at different purported examples of the word or being used in this exclusive disjunction way, and see why the author of our textbook, Smith, believes that these are not legitimate examples, so that ultimately Smith believes that the exclusive or is never in English, that we never actually use the exclusive or in English. First, we should note that there are definitely examples in English of this truth table being used. So, for example, in the sentence, A or B, but not both A and B. So if A were, I will eat an apple, and B were, I will eat a banana, then the sentence would go, I will eat an apple or a banana, but not both. If we take a look at the truth table for this, we'll see that it is identical to the truth table for the exclusive disjunction. So let's see here. First thing, we have the T's and F's that I'll distribute. Okay, the or is, now notice the or in the A or B, that is actually an example of an inclusive disjunction, the one that we're used to. So that is not an exclusive disjunction. So I didn't use the wedge with a little bar underneath it. So that is true. It's that, I should say that's only false when both disjuncts are false. It is true otherwise. The A and B is only true when both conjuncts are true. It's false otherwise. Of course, the not flips all the T's to F's and the F's to T's. And finally, the and, again, only true when both conjuncts are true, otherwise false. So notice it's false, true, true, false, and that's the same pattern we have for the exclusive disjunction. Another example, A unless B, in which case not A. I will eat an apple unless I will eat a banana, in which case I will not eat an apple. This one gets symbolized as if not banana, then apple, right? If I don't eat a banana, then I will eat, if I don't eat a banana, then I will eat an apple. That's that apple unless banana. And then the second part, in which case I will not eat an apple, that's if I do eat a banana, then I will not eat an apple. That's that if B, then not A part. So let's distribute those T's and F's. The not on the B is going to switch the T's and F's. And the not on the A will do the same. Then we have the if then, which is only false when you have a true antecedent and a false consequent. For that first one, that happens in row 4, but the rest of them are true. For the second one, that only happens in row 1, but the rest of them are trues. And then finally, we have the conjunction. Only true when both conjuncts are true. And that happens only in row 2 and 3. Otherwise, it's false. And of course, that pattern is the exact same pattern as the exclusive disjunction. Another sentence, A, if and only if, not B. So I will eat an apple if and only if I do not eat a banana. And that looks like this. The not for the B will switch all the F's and T's. And then the if and only if is only true when both propositions, component propositions, are true. Otherwise, it's false. Or true or false, excuse me. If they're both true or they're both false. So that happens in row 2, they're both true. And in row 3, they're both true, false. But in row 1 and row 4, they're different truth values. So we have that, again, that FTTF, which is the same thing as the exclusive disjunction. By the way, the A, if and only if, not B, is another way of writing the not A, if and only if B. So let's do that one too, just for good measure. So the if and only if is going to make it true whenever both propositions are true, component propositions are true, or both component propositions are false. Otherwise, it'll be false. And then the not in front is going to switch all the T's and F's. False, true, true, false. And that false, true, true, false, again, is the same false, true, true, false that we had before. But notice in all of that, never is it the case that we used a exclusive disjunction. So none of that proves that the exclusive disjunction is actually in English. Now let's take a look at some arguments that are meant to show that the exclusive disjunction is really in English. So the first one looks at two different arguments and evaluates them in favor of interpreting the or in them as an exclusive disjunctive. So argument 1 here, James ate a sandwich, therefore James ate a sandwich, or James ate a hot dog. So S, therefore S or H, something like that. Now, if we interpret the or there as an inclusive disjunction, this is a valid argument. So let's see. We have the S is true, true, false, false, true, true, false, false, and true, false, true, false. That disjunction is going to be true on rows 1, 2, and 3, and only false on row 4. But think about that. James ate a sandwich. That entails that James ate a sandwich or a hot dog? That seems bizarre. How's that true? Now, if this were an exclusive disjunctive, remember that row 1 is a false instead of a true. So we would say if it's true that James ate a sandwich, then it's false that either James ate a sandwich or a hot dog. Well, that sounds like it makes a little bit more sense, right? Argument 2 is very similar. Let's say we have James ate a sandwich and a hot dog. Therefore, James ate a sandwich or a hot dog. Sounds a little bit odd. Let's look at the truth table for the inclusive disjunction. Okay, first, that conjunction only going to be true in row 1. It's going to be false in all the other rows. The disjunction going to be true in rows 1 through 3 and only false in row 4. So that means it is valid on row 1 when it's true that we have a sandwich and a hot dog, that it's also going to be true that sandwich or a hot dog. But that sounds very bizarre to say. Remember though, for the exclusive disjunctive, that row 1, is false. So we would have a true in the premise and a false in the conclusion. That would make this an invalid argument. And that seems like it makes a lot of sense. So the argument goes, we should interpret the ors here as exclusive ors, not inclusive ors. Smith's objection here is going to be that we can actually explain all that we need to explain about why rows 1 seem whacked out in both arguments without having to have recourse to positing some kind of exclusive disjunction in English. And the way that he's going to do it is by, once again, appealing to those conversational implicature rules. So looking at premise 1, James ate a sandwich. To actually assert that, you have to believe that it's true, right? And that's by the maxim of quality. And by the way, if you don't remember what these maxims are, go back and check that video out. I'll put a link up somewhere on this video. But then think about the conclusion there. If you believe that S is true, why would you say that conclusion? When you know S is true, why say S or H? That's being less informative, right? You already have more information. You know that S is true. With S or H, S could be true. No, S is true, right? S is definitely true. So you wouldn't assert S or H by the maximum of quantity. You would be giving the most informative amount of information, the most informative information. You would give the most amount of information that's available to you, or at least, the most amount that's pertinent. So by the maxims of quality and quantity, if we believe that S, we would not say S or H. Therefore, row 1 is not something that would be said. It might be logically consistent. In other words, this might be a valid argument, but that doesn't mean that we would actually say row 1. And that's why it sounds so weird to us, because you would never actually do that. Now, we already have to use these rules of conversational implicature, and we already have the inclusive disjunction. So we have these things already, but now the person who's making this argument is claiming that there must be this exclusive disjunction as well. But if we can already cover everything we need to cover with these first two things that we already have, then why introduce this third thing that we don't need to have? That's the argument called Grice's razor, right? If we don't need this extra thing, we should just cut it off and do away with it. So much for the argument for the exclusive disjunction. Now we'll look at some purported examples of exclusive disjunctions. The first one being incompatible disjuncts. For example, you will either roll a 3 or a 4. Now I'm cheating here. You're not allowed to use numbers for sentence letters, but I used 3 and 4. For 3 for you will roll a 3, 4 for you will roll a 4. Don't tell Smith I did this, okay? I just got lazy and I thought this would be easier to do in the first place. I don't know. So yeah, don't narc on me. But the idea here is that you can never roll that top row, right? It can never be the case that 3 and 4 are both true, that you will roll a 3 and you will roll a 4. We're talking about rolling on the same roll, right? Obviously, you can roll successive rolls, 3s and 4s, but we're talking about the same roll. It will never be the case that both of those things will be true at the same time. Therefore, people will say that this is an example of an exclusive disjunction. Now, Smith points out here that we have to note there are really two issues at stake here. The first is whether both disjuncts can be true at the same time. And the second is whether the disjunction is true when both disjuncts are true. Those are two separate ideas there, two separate concepts. And why is that important? Let's look at our truth table here. So we have T, T, F, F, T, F, T, F. Next time I'm just going to have like the first part of this filled out, so I don't have to do this while you guys watch. All right. For our inclusive disjunction, this would be true all the way down here and false on the bottom. For the exclusive disjunction, it would be true, it would be false at the top. Yeah, my bad. Erase me. There. True, true, and then false again. So the offending row is row 1 there, right? Where 3 and 4 are both true. But think about this. What row 1 on the exclusive disjunction says is not that you can't have it be the case that 3 and 4 are both true. What it says there is when 3 and 4 are both true, the claim 3 or 4 is false. Well, that's just as ridiculous as saying when 3 or 4 are both true, the claim 3 or 4 is true, right? Actually, it's more ridiculous because if you think about it, that 3 or 4 being true, assuming that that was true, assuming that it could be true, right? Which it's not, I know. Assuming that it could be true, then would you say that it's false that at least one of those two things are true? No, you would say, yeah, 3 or 4 is true, right? In fact, both of them are true. If that doesn't make intuitive sense to you, then Smith gives actually an argument for why you should take 3 or 4 as the inclusive and not the exclusive. So look at these truth tables. If I am on the exclusive truth table, if I'm on the inclusive truth table, then saying that 3 or 4 is true is being less informative, right? It's putting my cards out and saying, hey, I'm somewhere in one of these 3. And that doesn't, whittle it down as far. In other words, I'm leaving it open which of these 3 rows I'm on. Whereas if I use the exclusive disjunction, I would say I'm ruling out 2 rows. I'm ruling out row 1 and I'm ruling out row 4, right? So that would be a stronger claim. It would be chipping away more at our different options that are available. So if I have the option, I want to go with the weaker claim, assuming that the weaker claim makes sense. And Smith says that the weaker claim does make sense. And here's why. By saying 3 or 4, you're going to roll 3 or you're going to roll a 4. I want to tell you one of two things. I either want to tell you that you're not going to roll something different, or I want to tell you that you're not going to roll something different and you're also not going to roll both 3 and 4, right? So I either want to exclude row 4 or I want to exclude row 1. Now, excluding row 4 is just the inclusive disjunction. That's this guy right here, right? That tells you you're not going to roll anything but a 3 or a 4. Excluding row 1, however, getting rid of this guy, although yes, it does say a true in there, based on your knowledge of dice, that there is no 3 or 4, right? Otherwise, I would have said you will roll a 3 or a 4, but not both. And that but not both would be a separate proposition that I would have to add on there, right? But I don't add that separate proposition on there because I realize that you automatically are going to rule out for yourself row 1 because of your background knowledge. You know that it's impossible to roll a 3 and a 4 at the same time. And I know that you know that. And this is going to sound weird. This isn't a joke. You know that I know that you know that. So when I say that, we both know that we're excluding row 1, right? That's not on the table. So using the inclusive disjunction, I make the weaker claim and I still get away with knocking out row 1 in case I really need to knock out row 1. Let's look at another purported example, the menu disjunction. So he talks about tea or coffee. The original one I think was tea or milk. So I'm going to change it to bacon or sausage because tea or coffee, it's always coffee. But bacon or sausage, that's a real debate to have. So sometimes you look on a menu and it tells you, you're going to get an omelet, and on the side you have your options of bacon or sausage. Now, notice that that word "or" there is telling you that you can have at exactly one. You can't have at least one, possibly both. They're not going to give you bacon and sausage. They're only going to give you bacon, or they're going to give you sausage, but not bacon or sausage. Or I should say not bacon and sausage. And that sounds exactly like the exclusive disjunction here, right? The trouble is that this isn't a disjunction because this isn't a proposition in the first place. This isn't saying this is the way the world is. The world is such that you will get bacon or you will get a sausage, right? What this is doing is setting out rules, which are like giving a command. And a command is not a statement of fact, right? It's not saying that the world is a certain way. It's setting out a rule for you to follow. And to show that this is the case, imagine that you snuck behind the curtains. There's no curtains. I don't know. You went to the back in the kitchen and you robbed them of both their bacon and their sausage. What happens now? Is it false that you got bacon or sausage? No, it's true that you got bacon or sausage. In fact, you got both. But you broke the rule that says bacon or sausage. So the rule, bacon or sausage, is you can have only one. But the proposition, you had bacon or sausage, that is an inclusive disjunction. Now, could we rework this rule so that it made itself into a proposition, like saying all people that order omelets will get bacon or sausage? Yeah, but when we do that, then it sort of loses its exclusive flavor, right? When I say all people who order bacon or sausage, when I say all people who order omelets get bacon or sausage, and again, you get both a bacon and a sausage, that sentence sounds true, right? Oh, you got bacon and a sausage? You wouldn't say that's false, right? You got bacon and a sausage? Then you didn't get bacon or sausage. Yeah, I got both bacon and sausage, right? That's the way it sounds. So when it's a command, sure, it sounds like an exclusive disjunction. The problem is that's not a disjunction in the first place because commands aren't disjunctions. But when it is a proposition, it's an inclusive disjunction. Our final example isn't actually in the book, but Smith references the paper by Barrett and Stenner that looks at all of these examples plus one given by W.V.O. Quine, whose name always sounds to me like either a wine or an olive oil. And it's the following: we will either go to the movies or to the beach. So let's say that there is a dad who is, taking his son out and they're having a fun time, but it's getting late, and the son says, "Dad, I want to go to the movies, then I want to go to the beach." And the dad says, "No, son, we will go to the movies or we will go to the beach." Now that sounds like a one or the other, but not both kind of a statement, right? Now what we could say is, thinking about that, we will do one or we will do the other. That's not that doesn't sound like a proposition. That sounds like a promise. I promise to go to the beach or to go to the movies. Now think about that. I promise to go to the beach or to the movies. That's not a disjunction. I mean, when you have a disjunction, usually you can tease it apart into two propositions with an or in the middle. So if you were to say something like, I will give the book to Johnny or to Marty, you can make that into, I will give the book to Johnny or I will give the book to Marty. You can expand that thing so that you can get both of those propositions in there. But can we do that here? I promise we will go to the beach, or I promise we will go to the movies. Well, no, now that means something different. Now that means that either you promised to go to one thing or that you promised to go to the other, but that's not what you're doing, right? You're promising one or the other, right? So this isn't a proposition. This is something, again, like a command. This is something that you're doing with your speech. It's not a claim that you're making. One possible reply here, by the way, and we're almost done here. This was kind of heavy lifting today, the exclusive disjunction. It's a lot to think about. But you could say that instead of making this a promise, that this was actually a prediction. So you're not saying, I promise we're going to go one place or another place. You're saying, we will go, as in, I'm predicting this. We will go to the movies or we will go to the beach. The trouble with that is, if that's the case, then this turns back into an inclusive disjunction. Imagine, again, that we go to the beach and the movies. Is that a false statement now? No, that turns out to be a true statement, right? If you predicted we're going to go to the beach or the movies and we go to both, I'm not going to be like, oh, see, you were wrong. We didn't go to the beach or the movies. No, we went to the beach and the movies, right? So this becomes an inclusive disjunction again, and we're back at square one. You might try to get around that by saying, yeah, but the tone of voice that the dad says it by, you know, like if he says, hey, either the beach or the movies. But tone of voice has nothing to do with logic, right? You can't introduce tone of voice into logic. That's just a big fat mess. So yeah, it's either an inclusive disjunction or nothing. One last little tidbit of information. I know I said we were almost done, but this is tiny. Is some people claim that the word either and either or tells you that it's going to be an exclusive disjunction. So either A or B is an exclusive disjunction, or whereas if you just say A or B, then it's an inclusive disjunction. But nobody agrees on that, right? There are plenty of people that it doesn't sound like that to their ears, and we just saw some reasons to believe that there is no exclusive disjunction in English, so there's no reason really to take that seriously. That sounded rude. I didn't mean to say that rudely. We could say there's no concern about the word either that you need have. I don't know. Anyway, that's all we have for this video. Go ahead for next time and read 6.5 and do the exercises on 6.5.1, and I'll see you there. Adios.